So I put up a
All
post
right,
asking for questions. Question number 1 from Great White Spark. Can I pet that dog?
Wait, do we really start?
It depends
Yeah.
on the game.
I asked if we were starting, and you said yes. So I
And you
started.
just went 1, 2, 3, let's go.
Oh,
You cannot
Do you
pet
think
the
it was
dog.
a bit? The thing
I
where we
thought
all
it was
meet up on
every-
a pre-scheduled time, and then we all go there to record, and then I said, yeah, we're ready to record, and then you say yes, and then I said, okay, we're starting. You think it's a bit? I'm faking you out?
I think everything's a bit unless otherwise stated.
This is untrue. Technically, objectively untrue, Andrew.
Well,
Is it?
This was all a very...
I've seen you take plenty of serious things seriously, or unserious things seriously.
I feel like you're making my point here.
Oh, you're saying that you take things seriously when you think they're a bit.
No, I think everything's a bit. Life's a bit. We're all a bit.
I can see where you're coming from.
He's the
Everyone's
Joker.
a little bit.
He's the Joker.
He's a low-key. He's a low-key stereotype, not archetype, I should say, not stereotype.
Low-key or
Society.
low-key?
I'm low-key.
Low-key. Yeah, sounds about right.
I hate this. Anyway, good question.
You're the
Good
one that
answer.
started the podcast.
Yeah.
That's true.
Don't
How
say
could
that you hate this. Come on.
I can hate this. It's easy.
I suppose.
Wow.
We're past 100 episodes. I don't have to care anymore.
That's yeah.
That's what The Simpsons said.
Do we have a captive audience now? They're here for life now.
We celebrated the 100th episode the dumbest, lamest way possible, which is that I forgot. And then we did a fucking trailer showcase. And then episode 101 was also a trailer showcase. And then it's been like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And we're back.
We
We're
are.
back. Okay, so the question is pet a dog?
Yeah, can you pet the dog? I think it depends on the game. Like Elden Ring doesn't let you pet the dog, and it's great.
I don't think you
great
finished
crime.
the question.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
that's the question.
Oh yeah,
Can I pet the dog? That's it.
Yeah.
No. You need to ask its owner first. And I'm not the owner of the dog. So
Yeah, you dog slut.
you can't just go around petting people's dogs like that. That's permission. What if that dog had like
I mean, he did ask
a
for
wild
that's
disease?
The implication of the
But
question.
I'm saying I'm not the dog owner. I can't give that consent.
You
It's
own a
not my
dog.
But he's not asking to pet my dog.
How do you know?
It's that dog.
He's asking
The
'cause he's asking
language
to pet a
that does
general
suggest
dog.
a third party dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't give consent to someone else's dog. But if you ask them, maybe. Most people let you pet the dog unless it's like a weird police military dog or something. I don't know. I don't think I've ever met somebody who I like, can I pet the dog? And they're like, no, my dog should kill you. It should kill you on sight for petting you. And I will not stop it. You're like, okay.
All right. Terosu asks, if you could have a prequel to any media property that doesn't have one, what would it be?
Wait, if you give what to any media property?
A prequel.
Yeah, can you? Oh,
Okay.
I don't like prequels.
That's the curse. If you hate
That
prequels,
is
then
the
what would you
curse.
inflict? What property would you inflict a prequel on?
I say I don't like the prequels, but honestly, as a general rule, I don't like. I'm back to watching television for many years now, and I'm watching a prequel. So what do I know?
I think the difficulty is that if you're a really good story, you don't need a prequel. I think of stuff like, so hear me out, very dumb, but when I think of stuff like maybe like 24, and I think, okay, well, what would a prequel to 24 be? And you think it's like, okay, well, it just have to be like Jack Bauer at Police Academy, I guess. And then you think of like, well, is that necessary?
God,
is that
this hasn't
even
come
like,
up in so long. I've forgot that you're like a huge 24 fan.
Yeah, I love 20.
This used to come up
I'm
so
such-
much.
I love 24. It's great. And again, this sounds completely unhinged in modern day. Like if you talk about 24 now, bad, not great. Like everything about 24 is objectively bad. It is super anti-Muslim. It is super like gung-ho pro CIA killing random people. Like it is just not a great show morally speaking. But its story starts at such a good place that you don't think, okay, But yeah, what was Jack Bauer doing before 24? Because like the story goes through Jack Bauer becoming a normal person to like God's chosen counter-terrorist unit man. And so you don't really need a prequel. You're like, what are you getting other than some weird self-flatuating, like self-referential shit like Han Solo, like Solo story was, where you're like, why would you say that though? Like, why would you tell me this information? Because I don't want it. I don't want to know where this name came from. I don't want to know about the race that you did. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, all that matters is like, how does this develop a character more? And none of these things do that. You're just pointing a finger at my fucking nose and going, I said the thing. I said the thing
one of the
for
worst.
you.
It's one of the worst versions of prequels. Is definitely the equivalent of Solo, where there was no mystery about the character Han Solo.
No,
there was
he's
nothing
a very,
to unpack.
very easy character.
Yeah, he was an extremely straightforward character. So making a prequel about him, the only right answer was just to have like an earlier story in his life that's him being all roguish and not having the other characters that you know from Star Wars in it, and not having Jedi in it. That's the correct answer.
Yeah, you just make it.
The wrong answer was to treat
wrong.
everything about his physical design as a toy, as a series of mysteries to be solved. How did he get that jacket? How did he get that blaster? Why is he called Solo? Like, it's so fucking stupid. And like, I saw a version of that because the last movie I saw in theaters, before it, the trailer for I think it's called Wicked happened, and it was agony.
Okay, yeah.
It's literally an agonizing trailer because it's just like it's the Wicked Witch of the West prequel from Oz.
What do you mean a prequel? Like, we're finding out why her
She's
and the
like-
witch of the
she
white
was like-
witch hate each other?
She was actually like a cool witch, but she was an outcast or something.
Oh my
And
god.
it shows like how
Go
she got
home.
the
Go home,
hat
even.
and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is so
What do you
fucking
mean?
stupid.
She's a
It's
witch.
so stupid.
She's wearing a witch hat. What do you can't just like make up shit. You I mean you
That's
can,
the
but
that's the like this is uniquely bad about Hollywood specifically, and not necessarily like book authors necessarily, but like Hollywood's idea of a prequel is always, what are the visual distinguishing elements of a character? How did they get those? Like, very literally, how did they get those? It's never like, oh no, it can't. Like, at the very least, fucking whatever the fuck the third Star Wars is called, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the
Episode 6?
Sith. I don't remember what episode 3 is called. It's been so long. At the very least, Star Wars episode 3 is entirely a fucking lead up to like that's the one you get.
Are you
get
saying
that when you spend an entire trilogy showing how Anakin becomes Vader, you're allowed to end it on him getting the Vader helmet, because that was the whole point of the everything. I always get confused because there's Return of the Jedi, but then there's also the alternate title for the Return of the Jedi that got changed to Return of the Jedi that has Sith in it, and then there's the actual movie that is called Sith. And I always like, it's been long enough since I've been programmed in that I'm forgetting, mixing them all up with each other now.
I want to say the original title used to be like Return of the Jedi or something like that, or it was not Return of the Jedi. I think it was like Revenge.
I think it was Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I think it was. Oh, okay. I think it was Revenge of the Sith. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think the important part though about Anakin too is that him getting into the suit is the culmination of his actions in 2 other movies. Like, this is a build-up thing. Like, you can tell that this kind of rash, not thinking about it, kind of knee-jerk mentality.
The scene was accidentally
Anakin
hilarious, but it
was
it made
comical.
It should have made
comical
sense.
as fuck. But the execution, or like the premise, I guess, in Lucas's head, I can see exactly why this happened, and I can see how it does pertain to the story in a less like they call him Solo because he doesn't have a last name or whatever. You know, there's like this feeling of someone having to like it.
Who are
Solo
your
feels
people?
Yeah, I love that Jenny Nicholson movie or video
movie.
Solo. It's great. movie. Whatever, they're like movies, they're like 4 hours long. I really like the.
I
I
saw
really
Jane
do
Nicholson
appreciate.
last week. I didn't talk to her. I was afraid.
Well,
That's
you
fair.
shouldn't have. She had bed bugs. You could have got
That
bed
is
bugs from her.
I'm terrified of everyone who comes up to me at a convention and talks to me is braver than me, because I've never done that.
That's fair.
I have never spotted someone at a convention that I like and I'm interested in and was like, I'm gonna go introduce myself to that person. I've never done that. That's terrifying.
I can one up you. I
I've
went
seen
to a
those-
convention, saw someone I knew there, and decided not to talk to them.
Oh no.
That's
no.
wrong. That's fucked up.
No, that is wrong. Actually, that is a one up. I
I would
agree.
I would be so mad if I found out you were at the same convention as me and you just didn't fucking say anything.
I felt bad because I saw that they were sitting in a group of people and they were talking
Oh,
with them,
no.
and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, they're in a group, they're talking with a group, and then I thought
don't wanna
about it and I
bother
was like,
them.
I'm
Yeah.
not part of that group. I'm not gonna go and like invade in that, and I'm not gonna stand here and creepily wait for them to finish talking with the group of people. So I'm just gonna go live my life, and I just didn't see them again while I was at the con.
I
So
have
just
had a
didn't
version
wanna
of
do it
that
again.
where I saw somebody
Yeah.
I knew at a convention sitting at an entire table of people all talking and drawing
See?
and furry art
Yeah.
and stuff, and I was like, it's terrifying to like walk up to the table of mostly strangers to try to introduce yourself to the one person. Although I have the bonus thing where I don't see these people in person that often, and I'm used to their avatars, so I also am slightly unsure if it's the person or not.
Oh, yeah,
So that makes it a little more
that's fair.
terrifying.
Yeah, that's a little bit more of a hesitation I would have as well. No, I just didn't. I just made a stupid mistake and just didn't acknowledge
Yeah,
somebody. I knew
sorry,
at a
Andrew's
convention.
friend.
That's
Mm.
fine. They
This is
probably
where
don't
he
remember it.
reveals that he was at PAX West when we were there, and he just didn't say anything.
I saw my whole group of friends. They were all
Yeah.
talking with one another.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like I could involve myself. I could not walk up to that group.
Toaster, Marty, not Marty, Bird, Brian, we're all there, and he's like, "Oh, that's interesting." Anyway,
I just go stand in line for 8 hours for something. I'm not gonna talk to them. I'm just gonna go wait in line.
they look happy. Why?
They didn't invite me. No. So I get it. I get the idea. Like, I agree. There's something weird about walking up, even though a con is just a big indoor market, essentially. It's like if you just went to a big outdoor market, but with a roof over it. And you can just kind of walk up to people, right? There isn't I don't know. It's not like a decree. There's not like a private group. You can't just like walk up. Excuse me, I registered this group. Like, you can't come into this group. Like, it's just a bunch of people standing in a room, and they sometimes go buy things. So yeah, it's funny. You feel this weird intimidation about walking up to a group and being like, "Hi," which is normal. It's just like the most normal thing ever.
bite.
I mean, in your case, they might, but in normal cases, they might not. And that's, I mean, I don't know. You could go to a place that has cosplay and they might bite you. Anime cons are weird, but
Gotta watch out for the Homestuck fans.
yeah, a lot of fans for some reason like to bite. But but yeah, no, it's just I get that. I get the reservation of like talking to people, even if people you know, at a giant social gathering for some reason. Which is, I don't know. I couldn't imagine. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I mean, in your case, because people
I-
know who you are, but also you're trying to join a group.
I can't necessarily think of an answer to this question specifically, but like my data is that whenever there's a good prequel, what it does is, instead of being a direct prequel to the main story that you think of as being the plot of the thing, it instead picks a side character that's really interesting and digs into like what was happening early on in their life instead. So you have Better Call Saul, and you have Furiosa. Like, Furiosa was a really cool movie, and then that was.
Ooh, you know what? I want a prequel to Jurassic Park. I think I want to watch Hammond. I want to see what inspired Hammond to make fucking dinosaurs. Like, what was the passion here to invest billions of dollars to get a dinosaur in his hands? Could you imagine? It's like he goes to like a museum and he's like, "That dinosaur's really cool." And some kid pushes him over. He's like, "No, dinosaurs are dumb, nerd. They didn't look like that at all." He's like, "I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna make a dinosaur and have it fucking eat you." And he just,
What? You better watch out.
buys a
Colin
dinosaur.
Trevorrow is going to actually make it. Trevenaro, Trevin.
If you do that, I want Steven
Colin
Spielberg to be the guy at the
Trev.
museum who tells
Colin
Hammond that he can't
Trevorrow,
see
what a name.
dinosaurs.
I could 1000% see the completely creatively bankrupt Jurassic Park franchise doing this, and it would immediately completely cheapen the original movie, especially
Oh,
since
wait, no, you know
especially
what?
since inevitably it would involve some kind of like someone getting killed by dinosaurs, because it wouldn't just be like an emotional and calm and serene movie about an artist being inspired or whatever, like a fucking biopic. Like, it's going to involve some kind of dino
what
outbreak, killing
dinosaurs,
somebody in the process. The first
You know,
ones that he
even
makes,
funnier-
there's going to be like
No.
Yeah, they
even,
would.
there's going to be like
plural,
there's
though, 'cause
no, well, because he made the park. I'm saying like there's going to be a
He
crisis.
did, but the series sort of goes in a direction where it's more and more grandiose, and to make a prequel that, in like from a logical perspective anyway, it would be like one or two dinosaurs at most, and yeah, sure, you
Well-
can make horror out of that. I mean, Alien, but
It's like Jurassic Park was with the finished park
the
had
same
it
direction.
going bad, and then it was after the aftermath. Like, now we're going back to the islands.
Yeah.
Like, it's a question of like how you should treat the animals, because they are animals and stuff, and they inhabit these islands, but the park's gone, and the structure and the incentives are all gone.
Yeah,
But like
there's.
you would
I would be
inevitably make
curious
a
because I
movie
think-
about the creation of the park, and it would involve some kind of dinosaur outbreak, and then probably some kind of PR cover up that would have to hide the outbreak, because
if
otherwise
you're-
no one would
if
want to
you're-
go. And also because you need to explain why no one talks about it in the original movie, and it would immediately cheapen the first movie because there was already the Jurassic Park.
oh, because it would undermine.
No,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would
Here, I got-
undermine a lot of
Because
moments.
inherently
sense.
the first movie has to be the first time everything goes wrong, otherwise it's just really lame.
I think,
Or
so to
hear
build
me
off-
out. You could
Right.
have a lot of fun here, and the first person that dies to a dinosaur dies to the fucking bones in the lobby. They just fall on him, and they're a T-Rex bone. So you get your
Nah,
T-Rex
it's too
and
much
eat it too, without the
Someone
real
dies
T-Rex.
in a normal, real museum,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Man,
Yes.
if that dinosaur was alive, that person would still be alive today." But it was
No,
bones,
even better.
so he died.
It's even better. It's just like I think the villain should die because like wires snap on the bones holding in the lobby.
But the
and they
villain that
fall on
cannot
him.
die, because the villain is
And-
alive at
no,
the beginning of the first
But
movie.
the first villain is the one who comes up with the idea that Newman ends up executing later. He's the guy who's
Oh,
like, I'm gonna
okay,
steal
okay, I
the
can see
DNA.
that.
And so Newman comes in, sees the code is already there to do this, and goes, oh, okay. I think I could see what someone was trying to do. They're trying to steal the dino DNA. All right, let's do
Dino
it.
DNA.
Let's be more realistic, though, because
I
if they
love
ever
that he's
did something
always
like that-
Newman. Everyone always calls him Newman, which is
what's
both
his
not
fucking
his name and not his
not his
character's name.
Oh, okay.
Newman is his character in Seinfeld,
I
but
have
literally
idea.
no one ever talks about Jurassic Park without calling him Newman. It's
is-
extremely
let's-
funny. His name's
let's be
Wayne
Wayne
realistic,
Knight?
though.
Wayne
His
Knight.
name is Wayne Knight. Are you
Yes,
shitting me?
he's got the most Batman name ever made.
What?
Yeah, it's
Why?
a mixture of
Why would
Batman
you
and
give...
Bane.
Okay, I
No.
think he...
No.
Yes, he
Okay,
is. Wayne
no.
is like Bane, and Knight is like the
No.
Dark Knight. It's
No.
definitely
No.
what it is.
No,
I
no.
definitely
I would
Colonel,
laugh.
Colonel. Batman's last name is Wayne.
Oh, it's even better then.
It's
Yes.
like Bane
Yeah.
from Batman. I swear to God.
I forgot about that. Look, it's
Okay,
similar.
you know what? I'm gonna
It's
throw a
definitely a
Hail
reference
Mary
to
here.
Batman then.
Sorry, now that I know this information, I think that there should be a Nolan.
There should be a Newman prequel. Just
There
Newman.
should be a no. There
What
should
was
be
Newman
a,
up to
a
before
No-
Jurassic Park?
There should be a Nolan prequel
Also,
to
his
the
name's
Batman
Nedry.
franchise he did.
His name's Nedry in Jurassic Park.
Oh
Well,
wait,
that's close
the
enough.
actor's name is the Batman name, not the
Yes,
character.
the actor's
Yeah, his
actual
real
name, is Wayne
sounds
Knight.
like
Okay.
the Bennett. No, the
Yeah.
most Batman
Okay.
ever. Yeah, the character
Yeah,
in Jurassic
so-
Park's named Dennis Nedry.
That sounds like a scientist name.
Oh,
Okay.
that's close. That's close to Newman. I would never remember that one.
Yeah,
over
it starts with N, so it's just. Let's be
Yeah.
realistic though. If they ever make a prequel to Jurassic Park, it's gonna be a prequel that reveals that all the dinosaurs actually come from the hollow Earth, and the Earth is just full of dinosaurs underneath. and then that's what the sequel is going to be about, is them actually finding out about this Hollow Earth again, and just like it's layers upon layers, and it undermines everything.
We're actually living on a Halo Shield world.
I would love if they combined the Journey to the Center of the Earth and Jurassic Park into one thing. Like there's just a giant crane that goes down into the center of the Earth, and they just pick dinosaurs up and put it on there.
But
bring the crane back up.
I'm not even like, I'm saying this as a criticism of just the way modern cinema works, but on an actual literal level, the Journey to the Center of the Earth and the Jurassic Park do have quite a lot of parallels as a story, so it would actually make sense.
You know what, make a new Journey to the Center of the Earth, put Chris Pratt in it as a kid or whatever, and then he grows up and works at Jurassic Park because the dinosaurs from the Journey to the Center of the
child
Earth are
CG
from there.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, take Chris Pratt's adult face and put it on a child. That's what I want. I want that right now.
No.
Yes, and I want him to have his same adult voice. Do not change his voice.
Okay,
I'm adult voice on a child body.
He uses Mario voice.
Yes, uses
when
Mario
he's
voice.
doing his Mario voice,
face.
that's when he's a kid.
But I want CGI to look like the fish guy from Sega Bass Fishing. That's what I want it to look like, that level. I don't want it to be hyper realistic CGI. I want it to be like PS1 era CGI face. Yeah. That's what I want.
I need to play Dino Crisis. I keep not getting around to that.
Dino Crisis is nice. It's pretty difficult, but it's a nice game. I want to build off of.
I've wanted to play Dino Crisis since it was new.
Colonel, what's your prequel? What's your prequel movie?
I was just gonna. Oh, me or Keith?
You.
Oh yeah, I was gonna. I'm gonna get to that, but I want to build off of what Keith was saying about the Maleficent background or whatever, or prequel,
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, yeah. I saw that through the corner of my eye on an airplane once, and it's just a symptom of the way movies are run. Not every movie, obviously, but Hollywood in general is run today, where and I'm not the best person to talk about this because I'm not a cinephile, so I'm just raising the subject here and drawing the connection rather than actually trying to make a very cohesive argument. Cogent, I think is the word that I was looking for. But the modern day cinema gets the audiences hooked up into lore and into the details of the worlds that the movies are there to serve. And that happens a lot with multiverse stuff, like Marvel or whatever. I don't know if multiverse is the term, but like big overarching universes that a bunch of different series or movie series are put into, like Marvel. So people are worried. Basically, they do that so people, and this is well known, but they do that so people will watch this unrelated side shoot movie that's not actually about Batman, but because it's set in the same universe, they're going to watch it because it may say something about Batman, and then they'll just add some detail about Batman in the middle of the movie to keep them hooked. And the nature of those details, and this is not just pervasive to crappy movies that aren't really about the main subject, but is also pervasive in the movies about the main subject as well, like Iron Man and Thor and stuff like that. The thing about the details isn't that the details are that they're plot advice or character like arc. They don't advance the character arcs. They don't necessarily advance the plot in big waves, although they do. Obviously, there's big movies that change the plot drastically. But the most common of these elements is tiny little details, like why is your hat the color it is, and why are you called Solo? Because that's the easiest stuff that doesn't really affect anything, and you can just answer that in a movie that's not really about the subject, and people get hooked on that sort of questions, which completely melts my brain, honestly, because it's like I can understand. I'm not the kind of person that watches a movie or reads a book or whatever, or plays a game and gets really excited about what is going to happen next. That's not really me. So that's my bias. I'm telling you my bias. It's that I am not that kind of person, right? But I can understand on a sort of moral, emotional as well, but primarily intellectual level. I can understand that people are interested in the suspense of a movie or a movie series. And that happens to me as well into certain things, right? Where you're like, okay, I watched this movie, and at the end of the movie, this person is revealed to be alive, and what's gonna happen next? This really gets people going, and that's cool as long as it serves to tell interesting stories. It's not cool if I'm gonna learn that their name is Solo because they were alone, or their hat is red because that was the color of a flower that lived in their home world, because that doesn't mean anything, not even on a symbolic level, let alone an actually plot relevant moment. And that's, I think, and what really fascinates me is that people get satisfied by stuff like that, and that's why I don't like prequel. I started out saying I don't
even engage with media that way. Like even with how much people talk about Star Wars, I didn't know about like the Medal of Yavin or blue milk for like decades. I'm like, what the fuck are people talking about? Milk. Like, this is a thing people talk about? What?
Look, the thing is, I'm with you there, but there's media that is
I know
like
you're with
that.
me, but mainly because I know you haven't seen Star Wars.
That's okay, but what I'm trying to say is that there is media like that. For example, a Game of Ice and Fire. A Song of Ice and Fire, a Game of Thrones. That is the books in particular are written from the perspective of you paying attention to tiny details and then drawing parallels to other things that happen in the story. Simple, for people who watch the TV series, you'll know the characters, and I can draw parallels, for example, between the story of Ned Stark and the story of his elder son, Rob Stark.
Rob.
And those stories are yeah, I think it's not Robert, it's Rob. I think it's just Rob. And those two stories, those two characters in the TV series, you watch a TV series and you're seeing the story. So that's one of the shortcomings that the TV series has, which is you don't actually see the symbolisms that the books are all about, because there's a lot of tiny little languages in the way, or tiny little details in the language that these characters are described, and the things that they go through are described, that you can start drawing comparisons and be like, hey, this is sort of the same story, and the author George R.R. Martin is trying to tell the same thing. So when people talk about Star Wars and they say, oh, the blue milk is this thing, and look at this tiny detail, and the implications, and they start drawing these parallels, I can respect that as long as the movies are actually written and not just written but actually maintained throughout the series to respect those details, because otherwise they're just production artifacts, right? That it's like maybe somebody on set decided that the milk of this creature is blue instead of white because they didn't have easy access to white paint or whatever, and it's just whatever, it doesn't matter, that's not a big thing, right? Because it's just a production detail. But then everybody watching the movies with supreme attention to detail is going to look at that, why is that thing blue all of a sudden? And I think I remember seeing the screenshots. It's not that small of a detail. Is actually I think he drinks it like as the only person on camera. I think that's when he drinks the blue milk. So he didn't pay attention, which is fine because it's not the point of the scene. But people watching that will maybe draw the too detailed a conclusion, and I think that's only a good attitude to have when the media justifies that attitude. It's like playing Elden Ring. You need to pay attention to all the tiny details, and not just Elden Ring, Dark Souls as well, anything from Miyazaki, right? You need to pay attention to the tiny details because the symbolism is there. But if you play Mario and all of a sudden, what is the Mushroom Kingdom? What is this? And you start drawing all these comparisons, you can't take your comparisons as canon or as intended meaning, because it's just a Mushroom Kingdom. The only I suppose symbolism that you get is the influences that the authors had back in the 70s or 80s or whatever, whenever the first Mario was made, which I'm not cultured enough to know what the influences would be.
I got just the most suitable search result possible, which is like Star Wars. Mark Hamill compares Galaxy's Edge blue milk to the original. It's
the original blue milk?
Yeah, because he had the blue milk on set, which obviously wasn't even designed to be a beverage. It was a prop. And then now they serve blue milk decades later at the theme park for Star Wars. It's mythologized and committed to that long, this tiny set detail. that they
love that you say it
fucking
like
make.
that.
It's a fucking drink at the theme park that you can probably pay $20 to have because it's a fucking theme park food, so it's a nightmare.
Excuse you,
Yep.
not everything at Disneyland has to be
I watched that
expensive.
movie
It just
so many
is.
times as a kid and never even registered the concept of blue milk, and literally only know about this because of the internet now. It's such a nothing detail.
Yeah,
It's so weird.
a lot of stuff about especially older franchises, it feels like the more information that you're given, the more falseness of depth you feel that the story might have. You think the story is deep and robust because there seems to be a lot of lore attached to it, but that doesn't mean anything. There's literally a Luke Skywalker that's called like new Luke Skywalker or whatever, and it's like, this isn't lore. This is someone desperately grasping at something to make money. And that's fine, but you can tell the difference between the thought process between why the stormtroopers look the way they do and why the rebels act the way they do versus someone coming up to you and telling you that like, oh yeah, Chewbacca's a rebel, and you're like, okay, well, can you like further explain on that? Like, why is he a rebel? Are there other Wookiees? And did they talk about it? Did they like have a Wookiee conversation about rebelling against the Empire? What did it sound like? Was it all just like like there's more things you can do than just point and tell me what the answer to a question is. You need to make it make sense in the world that you're in. And I don't think it makes sense because you've never met another person named Solo. Like if this is such a common, well, yeah, Wookiee's also dumb, but like,
Skywalker,
but again, like. But you only see one Wookiee until the prequels, and you see a whole planet of Wookiees, and now you have to like do the gear motion where you go like, what do you mean there's a whole planet of Wookiees? What do they do? What's their government? How do they live? And if you can't think of a way to make that good without just answering the question, like without Mickey Mouse putting a gun to your head and go like, tell me why he's named Solo, and you're like, he's alone, and he's like, good enough, and he's just like,
why was Mickey Mouse
like,
shirtless behind that door?
Because he was the first generation Mickey Mouse. He didn't have a shirt back then.
Yeah, you couldn't afford it. Did you? You didn't know that? Yeah, Mickey Mouse actually is a rag to riches story.
Just here with the chaos answers. He doesn't even know what property I'm talking about.
I don't know. But the answer to the question though, and
yeah,
so we can continue talking about it. My prequel, the movie I would make
your dream prequel.
My dream prequel, yeah.
Your dreamquel.
I would say it's just. I mean, I've mentioned this movie in this podcast, but so often. Alien. I would want a prequel to Alien, but not a horror prequel.
You got a prequel to Alien. What are you talking about? That's what Prometheus is. That's what. Whatever.
Oh, that sucks. That's
was
first off.
Prometheus
Okay,
before Alien? I don't remember anymore.
It was.
Yes. Yeah.
Prequel that sucks. For one, it's exactly the example of what I'm talking about. It's worried about like new lore and new things, and look at this stuff. No, I don't care about that. I want to see the Nostromo, and I want to explore it and see how cool this ship is. That is only like a little maquette back in the 70s.
And the sad workers that have to live there.
I want a story about the just sci-fi, this dystopic sci-fi where some folks are carrying cargo across the space, and the plot has to be something, not horror. It's not horror because they haven't found the alien yet, so no horror for me, thank you. But it's a prequel. That's what I would like, because I want to see the Nostromo.
I don't want to be scared. It's not a scary movie.
No,
yet.
I like the scares.
I want fantasy. Fantasy.
Yeah, because if they try to make it horror, it's bad. No, I want the people in Alien 1 to see horror for the first time, because that's the experience we get as viewers, and they get as well. That's what the movie's about, is them being like, I'm not afraid of no space aliens, and then all of a sudden there's some eggs jumping at their face. And they're like,
you can't scare them. They live in like a late stage capitalist empire. You can't. They're already scared enough. The aliens are just like icing, or like just cherries on the top, but they're already living in fear. Their jobs are all that keep them alive in space, the depth, the void.
Yeah.
But also it's really difficult to make like a prequel to a rape allegory. It's I don't know what the prequel to rape is.
It's not a full. I mean, I'm not.
It's pretty. It's pretty like on the nose about that. I don't know. Being forcefully.
They uses that as
impregnated by an alien seems pretty hard.
It's not. I don't think that's the overarching theme of of the movie. I think it uses that
Of
as a
Alien?
sort of a color. Yeah, or even the alien
I'm
itself is not. I don't think that's what it is. I think
I'm pretty
that's meant.
sure.
I think that's meant to just scare it's just it's a body horror in a way. It's using body horror to scare people, and it's not the theme. It's not the subject. But you can draw the parallels. I've seen the argument made. I know what you're talking about, but I remain unconvinced regarding as it being a full-on rape allegory.
I mean, so to humor the idea, the problem would be, what about the Nostradamus is actually interesting?
No,
What
Nostromo. It's not
oh,
Nostradamus.
Nostromo, whatever. I mean, it both of them are failures. What was the important, like, what about that ship mattered compared to all the other ships in the entire Wayland Enterprise venture? What about that ship in particular was so important that it justifies having more information about it?
I don't want. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't want it
Yeah,
for the
like
information
that.
about it. I want to see it because we get some fleeting shots of the outside of the ship in the first movie. I don't know if we see more. I don't remember if we
Yeah,
see more in the sequels, but or of similar ships. But it's like this Warhammery Gothic kind of spaceship thing carrying this big ass freighter, cargo stuff, and it's so weird and it's so. I
wow,
always
I can't
I
believe
thought
you're
it was
calling
so
the
unique.
'80s weird. How rude.
I just because that it's unlike anything else in sci-fi, and that's one of the appeals of for me of Alien is because it sets its own um, environment, or what's the word, sort of the world is the art design is so unique that
Mm.
I would like to see more of that, and in a movie about something else, in a movie that isn't about horror and death, but a movie about, I don't know. Yeah, it would be cool to be like any other plot, literally, except I suppose the comedy romance. I probably wouldn't like that.
I can't even begin to understand how you would do a comedy romance in an Alien franchise.
Look,
That
love
seems
conquers all.
like
Okay, they can
uh
go be cryogenically frozen on the same pod together if they want.
excuse you. I'm pretty confident in saying that the aliens of the xenomorphs are the apex predators. So if there's
They are
something
the
that
ones
can
that
be
conquer
killed,
all.
they should be able to kill it.
Yeah.
Even love. So I think there is the inherent contradictory problem of prequels of, like, I don't think you can make a good prequel unless you are genuinely saying something, but the prequel just happens to be in the same universe. Like, again,
No, it's hard.
Star Wars is always it's hard. Star Wars is a good example of someone like, I have an idea to expand the world, right? It's not literally I'm not making prequels just to talk about Luke Skywalker. I'm making a prequel to further create more depth to the lore of the entire universe. I want to talk about governments in this universe. I want to talk about religion in this universe, and
Yeah,
blah
I
blah
like
blah.
that.
But the problem becomes is that the people watching it go, okay, well, you called it Star Wars. Where's the Star Wars people? I want to know the Star Wars people. And you're like, oh, okay, well, there's Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're like, yeah, the Star Wars people. And
The
you're
worst.
like, okay,
It's
well,
literally always true though that the worst Star Wars prequels are the ones that feature any character from the original series.
yeah. And
The
like
moment
the
Obi-Wan
best
shows up
ones,
or something, you're like, oh man.
the best ones are the ones that have a character that you know, but they don't even talk about it. Like, he just shows up wandering in the scene and it just exists. And you're like, isn't that the guy? Hey, isn't that the Star Wars guy? What's he doing over there? And he just doesn't say anything. He's just in there doing, like, pointing at a thing like, oh, yeah.
Admittedly, like
make sure
one of
to
the
do
only
that.
good ones is Andor, and that's starring a character that was so incoherent that he can't functionally even be a prequel to the character in the movie, because the character in the movie made no sense.
Honestly,
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
We had
I
the
think
experience. Like Yumi and Joe watched Rogue One on your couch, and we're just like, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah.
It's so fucking bad. Why is this movie so bad? Why do people like it?
Because I think people don't obviously people don't think about what they're watching a lot of times. It's entertainment. It's there to be fun. They're having a good time. That checks the boxes. They got what they wanted, which is to have a good time and not be upset by the thing that they're engaging with. But
It's so obviously a movie that went through massive production hell and fell apart and was cobbled together in a fucked up edit and doesn't function artistically on really any level. And the fact that people don't feel that when they watch it is wild to me, because like they did not gracefully cover it up. They did not masterfully rescue the film in the edit. Like, it's a shit show, very obviously, in a way that makes me question the media literacy of everyone that's watching it. Well, and it's like, and I don't know, I said the keyword that's now like a buzz thing now, but I mean, like, it is legitimate. Like, Rogue One feels a bit like, seeing the audience reaction to Rogue One, it feels a bit like watching the audience reaction to like Password, where I'm like, how does anyone like this? How are they not noticing everything that's so glaringly fucked up about how this came out? It's so obviously a broken movie.
For me, the worst part, or the worst reality, is realizing that people know. People are aware that it's not like a good story. They just don't care, because that's not what they're there for. They're there to be engaged, like entertained and engaged. It's like
but then that still culminates in them like hyping it up as being the best Star Wars movie ever made since
because
Empire.
It was for them. They were they liked
bad.
it. It was fun. It was engaging. It was good. And when you say stuff like that, when you say like, "Oh no, it's bad," you just have bad media literacy. They're like, "Why can't I just have fun? Why can't it just be a fun thing for me to have?" And you go like, "You can,
but
yeah.
You can why
also,
are you engaging? Why are you
shit.
engaging in discussions if you don't want things to be discussed?"
Yeah, it's like you can two things can be true in this sense. If you don't
care about things enough to talk about them, then don't go to the places where people talk about the thing that you don't want to hear talked about.
That's the ultimate irony, is because they want to be excited and share that excitement with other people, but the problem is that the only people they can share that excitement with, they can
possible
find,
way.
Yeah, but they want to share in that excitement in a way that isn't what anyone else wants to talk about. It's the same, it's like the same as those weirdos who get upset about like a girl being in a movie, and you're like, okay, well, you're alone in this. You're like a weird, small, tiny, microscopic subset of the people watching this, and this isn't the common conversation. No one gives a shit that a girl piloted a ship. This isn't like this has nothing to do with the overarching media literacy of the entire movie. And so if you come up and you're like, well, that person shouldn't have piloted the ship, people are going to look at you and go, okay, but why does that matter at all to the relevancy of like understanding the themes and the message of this story? Who gives a shit that some girl piloted a ship? That doesn't mean anything. And that's kind of what it is when people show up and don't have an opinion about a movie like that. They don't have any depth to the story or the what the message of it is, and they show up and they're just like, I had fun. And you're like, okay, awesome. Glad you had fun. It's a shit movie. And they're like, no, but I had fun. It's like, oh, that doesn't have any relevance to how fucking good the movie is. Like, I have fun playing with water balloons, but man, water balloons suck to fucking clean up. But like, it's still fun to play water balloons. So like, what? Like we can, but I'm
Today
saying two things can be.
Andrew plays with
two things can be good at the, two things can be true at the same time. I don't, because it sucks to clean up. You have to clean up a bunch of fucking broken water balloons. It's not that fun.
Yeah,
I think water balloons are a fun thing, but they are not fun. Like, that's the thing. Is like, I see the premise. Yes, it's fun to throw giant balloons of water at people, but cleaning up giant balloons of water that you threw at people is not fun.
Works.
And the point I'm making is that when you go into media literacy conversations and your only contribution to that conversation is, I had fun, it was fun, you're going to not get the response you want, because people aren't going to turn around and look at you and go, yeah, it was fun. It is fun. They're going to look at you and tell you like, okay, yeah, it was cool that an explosion happened, but I think it was unnecessary for there to be, two guys high-fiving each other's butt cheeks and also farting in each other's mouth while the explosion happened, because it didn't add anything to the story. And like, that immediately kills the conversation the original one was having, because they don't think about it that deeply. They just went, but it was fun. Yes, it was. Good. But that's not the conversation. That's not the general discussion happening about any kind of movie, is its vibes. People discuss like the context of a movie. They discuss the substance. They're not discussing, well, I don't know, Huckleberry Finn has some weird racist vibes to it. It's like, okay, yes, but why? Can we let's dissect that? What is the conversation happening? What is the intent of the author? No, but it has racist vibes. Oh, that contributes nothing. All you've told me is feels, and that doesn't. It's not. You can't go off of that. Like, that's.
I can see where you're coming from. It's the
Yeah,
same.
it's not.
I
That's not.
I
That's
share.
not media literacy, but that is what people who think they have media literacy talk about. They just talk about feelings about entertainment. They don't talk about the substance of entertainment, and that's
I
not.
think it's easy. It's easier for people listening to relate to that if they think about something that they have fun with, but don't necessarily like on an intellectual level. Hate watching, for example, would be a good example of this. Something you actually enjoy watching, but you actually hate as on a fundamental level. Because that dichotomy, so separating the fun you have with something with how good you think it is I think is the first step in you being able to criticize something or talk about it in terms that are less about how you feel about it and more about something that other people can share. So like for example, for me, an example of that would be well, Game of Thrones. I mentioned it before, the TV series. Cinematography, like from a cinematography perspective, it's a terrific series through and through. But the plot, I was very disappointed with it starting it halfway through, and I would say that I don't like it as a
Wow.
TV series. I don't like the TV series, but I don't have anymore. But at the time I had a tremendous amount of fun watching it and rewatching it and paying attention to all the details, because there's a lot of things that you can salvage from that experience that are not necessarily related to the plot, and you can see the acting, you can see the moment to moment shots and all those, all the things that goes into making television, and you can have fun with that, and I certainly had a lot of fun with that. And at the same time I was critical of the plot. Another example is, for example, Baldur's Gate 2. I was talking about it I think yesterday on my stream, because I'm still playing Baldur's Gate 3. It's the best game. But I'm sorry, Keith, that you're still having problems. But Baldur's Gate 2 I was thinking of how it compares in terms of writing to Baldur's Gate 3. And there were some very insightful chatters in chat talking about it as well. So I'm gonna borrow some of their ideas. The comparison between Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 was, in my opinion, and in the opinion of this one chatter that I was talking to, is that word to word, Baldur's Gate 2 is actually better written than Baldur's Gate 3. But the underlying plot is miles better in Baldur's Gate 3. And I was thinking about, my initial reaction was like, no way Baldur's Gate 2 is actually better written than Baldur's Gate 3 in terms of word to word. And obviously everybody's opinion can be different. I'm just saying what my gut reaction was. And I thought for a couple of seconds, and I detached myself from that gut reaction. The sort of defensive gut reaction of me just really enjoying characters like Gale and Elminster and Karlach and their word to word, because I do enjoy their word to word. And I realized that, yeah, I think that the prose in Baldur's Gate 2 is actually better. But I need to take a step back to see how that doesn't actually mean what initially you would think it means, right? Because you'd say, oh, this game is really well written. Like the sentences are all very beautiful and everything is very nice. But that doesn't, if you hear that, you say, oh, this person thinks this game is well written. Because that's literally what I said. But no, it doesn't necessarily has to be that, because I have a lot of criticisms towards Baldur's Gate 2 in its plot, like the main villain, for example. And I know I'm throwing fire at a lot of people because a lot of people love John Irenicus. But John Irenicus I laugh at him. I like literally the last time I played the game, I hadn't played it in years. And the villain just comes across as such a child, written like a child would write a villain. And the reason why it's hard to see that is because the prose is so good, actually. And his lines are so well delivered as well. The actor is incredible. And so a lot of people just don't think too deep, which is fine. Or maybe they think deep enough and just disagree with me, which is also fine. But I'm just saying that growing up, I didn't think deep. I didn't look at John Irenicus and saw, wait, you're just an emo 15-year-old who doesn't stand for anything, really. Doesn't mean anything. I think the biggest crime of any game, but in particular Baldur's Gate 2, is that the villains don't mean anything. They're just a vessel for the empowerment of your main character. They're the hero's journey, not even inverted. They're the sort of like your character or your characters or you as a player, depending on what kind of game we're talking about. You have to have something to unleash your empowerment on, and that's what the villain is there for. And that's why so many games introduce a second. Oh no, you thought you killed the end boss that you have been fighting the whole game. No, I have a treat for you. There was actually somebody else controlling that main boss, and this is the real main boss. Ha ha! And then you get a second boss fight against somebody who haven't seen before at all. And sometimes that second boss fight actually says something, like the Elden Beast in Elden Ring. And because you haven't seen the Elden Beast, but it means something to the lore. It's there for a reason. But other times, just some bollocks, like the whatever god it is that is the real main boss of Pathfinder Kingmaker, and it means nothing. And so I think what I'm trying to say is, it's easier for people who are trying to get started on the journey of media literacy to think of things that they enjoy but don't actually like, because then they're going to unlock actually liking things that they don't enjoy, which is the real superpower in all this, is them looking at a game like, I'm trying to come up with examples off the top of my head right now, but of a game that I wouldn't like normally, but then I don't know, I can't think of an example right now because I'm lost in my words as well, and in my example, in what I'm trying to say here. But that's the real superpower, is being able to look at media that you normally and don't normally wouldn't enjoy because it's not really up your alley, or because there's something that you gripe with and you're not you don't want to engage with that. But you can actually see, because you think about it, you can actually see things that you enjoy, and you draw pleasure from stuff that normally you would be blind to. Like, not my example, but I have a friend who, growing up, he was always like, "Oh, I don't like sci-fi. I don't like particularly sci-fi." He just says, "I don't want to watch any sci-fi movie. I just like real life things," because he couldn't really. Well, his justification was that he couldn't really connect to the plot, or to the things that happen on screen, because it didn't speak to him. But lately, he's just been devouring sci-fi movies in particular, and he's just been really enjoying it. And the reason, well, I haven't talked to him about it actually, but I would say, from an intellectual perspective, I didn't make that argument when we were kids, but these days I make that argument, is that sci-fi isn't actually about made up stuff. It's about our universe as humans right now, writing about our own lives in a sci-fi setting. And sci-fi just allows us to sort of disconnect from all the implications of our real world, and talk about stuff that is hard to talk about. And I'm not, I'm not even making
like communism and
like communism.
Racial, homogeny, or racial harmony. That's the word. Racial harmony.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason
you would want in a society just only exist in the sci-fi world.
But you can also explore, exactly. I mean, because you can set the rules ahead of the game and just say, okay, in this society, these people they don't have what's the thing in Star Trek, that, because they're like a Star Trek are these sort of idealized social democracy kind of thing. I'm just trying to draw from the example of Star Trek, but you can make that setting. You can just say, in this people, they left all the ugly stuff on the 20th century behind, and we're just trying to tell a better story and just sort of work the other way around. But Star Trek is still
trying
about,
to say the 20th century isn't a good story to tell. I'll have you know.
No, I'm just saying that you overtake certain issues, because obviously you can tell any story in any setting, but it is easier if you just say,
you throw away stuff that isn't good to have a story about.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Keith, what is your prequel movie?
I'm trying to see if I could find the Voltaire quote.
Is that the one I was thinking of about sci-fi?
I'm gonna guess he wants
Beneath
Let's
the
see.
veil of fable, it should allow the practiced eye to perceive some subtle truth unnoticed by the common horde.
What? What are you talking about?
And it's
I have never heard of that quote, but yeah.
it's specifically interesting because Voltaire basically predates science fiction. So that's how old that idea is.
Yeah, because fantasy. Well, sci-fi is just is a type of fantasy. I mean, it's in the title. But
Well,
I don't think I've
versions of
ever
what
read anything.
Versions of what he was doing are like essentially sci-fi, basically. Like it's hard to define exactly. But no, I went and found that book on my shelf as I left for a minute to track it down, and there's literally just like one of those highlight stickies is sticking out of it, like I had in all of the Beastars books. It's just been waiting at that quote.
Oh,
I feel like it's one of like the only times I've like used a highlighter in a book too, in like ages. I'm just like, this is very interesting to find this quote here, just reading through this.
Yeah, it's a beautiful quote. I mean, the way it's written, but the meaning is, it is what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
Is that, and the beauty of it is that, obviously, not everybody will see the same story in these allegories in a way, and that's beautiful as well, because that's what means some people relate to certain characters and not to others, and just because either they see themselves in those characters or they see different aspects. That's the whole thing about drawing parallels to for in Beastars, for example, the whole Legoshi is gay allegations, that
Allegations.
that really just mean that the story is written so well that it's in an internally consistent way that you can make a story about, how did you put it? What's the word you use, Keith? Oh man, I'm blanking on the word to use. What is Beastars about ultimately, Keith? Would you say?
Stigma.
Stigma. That's the word. Yes. Sorry, I was blanking on it. So it's a story about stigma. So in that way, and because it is written internally in an internally consistent way, you can see different types of stigma about different types of things mimicked. And obviously, because Beastars does draw on a lot of the imagery, and not just imagery, but does draw on a lot of the symbolism of other types of stigma, then it works in the way you put it in your essay. And that's what's really fascinating about fantasy, is that it's a little bit easier to, I would say, than in like real life fantasy. What is that the term for fantasy books that are set in real life? It's easier to see the parallels if it's a fantasy setting than if it is in real life.
I think they have a word. I think it's like fantasy fiction or something like that.
It's just fiction, yeah. Because if you say, "Oh, John went to Japan and he learned how to speak Japanese, came back to America, and now he's a criminal," you're sort of, okay, these are all things that mean things to me, but what do they mean to the author? What's going on? And so it's a lot. You need to build so many layers on top of it that to create allegory with the real life stuff, it's a little bit harder. It's not impossible, obviously, but in fantasy, it's a lot easier. Because especially, like, for example, that one time where we wrote the 2,000 word random prompt from the viewers. Remember, like 2 years ago, or 3 or 5 years ago, however long that was.
Oh my god,
1
it's
million
been a while.
years ago.
Yeah, that one time, like, it was all fantasy. Well, at least for me, it was a fantasy setting about teleportation or time travel, I should say. And
oh yeah,
I just took it as I picked it up. I looked at it. The prompt, if I remember correctly, was a world where everybody can where everybody can time travel. How would you write that? And I wrote something that would mean something to me, which is a story of how that can be used to oppress people, and on a systemic level. Obviously, you can make it fantasy, and you could just say, "Oh, everybody can time travel, and everybody lives their best lives," and you could tell a completely different story with the same setting. That's why That's why sci-fi and fantasy in general isn't about the rules that it sets. It's not about the fact that everybody can time travel. It's about what the author does and the story the author tells with those rules. So it's always the other way around. I feel that the plot itself, or not the plot, the details of the plot need to serve the overall story, and rather than the other way around. So if there's a War of the Clones, the War of the Clones needs to serve the story of the second movie or whatever it's mentioned, and not let's make a movie or 3 prequels about the War of the Clones. Even though, I mean, George Lucas did want to tell that story, but then obviously I'm coming from the perspective of somebody who hasn't watched Star Wars.
Yeah, I can't guess what Lucas ever thinks about, but I imagine his intent is just to be political, which might sound counterintuitive to every current Star Wars fan's theory of Star Wars. But yeah, I think George Lucas is. Yeah, Lucas is like he's not shy.
True,
his entire
You're
methodology of making Star Wars is like, yeah, I want to make political commentary, and you're like, well, you can't say that now, but okay, interesting. Like giant empires, small little planets, I guess. The empire doesn't have a planet; they just are an empire. But yeah, just like the small little planets opposed to giant empire control, and yeah, seems very political. I don't know where you could have got that from, George. I don't know what was going on in your lifetime that would make you and feel that way about
Vietnam
about
War.
the current world.
They sure were,
honestly,
in
I
fact,
think
movies about wars.
Yeah, it's weird. Why would you put war in the name of your movie if it wasn't political? But
I haven't thought about that, actually. That is a very good point.
What?
No, not that war. Obviously, I've thought about war is political by nature.
Is war political?
But I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody in the 70s, in a setting, or not in setting, but in the 70s, where the United States was losing its war against North Vietnam and China in Vietnam, and then going to the movie, see a movie called Star Wars, and expecting escapism. Potentially,
Well,
how would you accept?
It was
because
it was
people,
escapism. It was still fun. You know why? Because
For sure,
people didn't get paid exorbitant, or not. Sorry, not everyone on the entire face of the human planet had the opportunity to make money by having a shitty opinion about something. So people usually just went into a movie, watched it, and went, "Okay, that was a fun little romp," or "I don't know, whatever. I don't really like the Star Wars or whatever," and moved on. They didn't have to build an entire identity around whether they had a positive reaction to that media. And so people could watch it and go, ooh, this kind of feels like a commentary on Vietnam. I don't really like that. I support Vietnam. And just live their lives. They're fine. They don't actually have to go onto their $8 a month Twitter account and go on there and say, actually, I think it was okay that Vietnam happened, and Star Wars shouldn't talk about Vietnam like that.
Before the popularization of VHS, movies just went away.
That also helped too. Yeah, that was
Which is
really
wild
useful.
to think about. Like, you just couldn't rewatch movies.
We should go back to that. I think we should go back to a time where we're not allowed to watch, because here's the funny part. You get to see a lot of those grifters who make a bunch of like fake outrage about shit. Can't say anything. They can't talk about, because they don't watch the fucking movies. So as soon as they don't watch the movie and it vanishes, you go like, yeah, what part did you not like about the movie, by the way? And they're like, all of it. It had bad commentary. You're like, no, you're lying, you little shithead. Show me right now. What scene? Pull up the fucking...
People don't get called out like that. The grifters are grifters, not because they find their way. There's always going to be grifters. And there were grifters back then as well. It's just that they didn't have the same reach that they have today, which is really the... People
just don't think about... there was that really good Red Letter Media video about this, about that people just don't have any conceptual awareness of the idea of politics at the time period that things came out in. Like, people don't sit down and go like, well, why was the movie in the 1980s made about this? And you have to go like, well, in the 80s there was this stuff going on, and people wanted to say that was bad, so they made a movie about how it's bad. And like no one thinks like that. They just go like, it was a fun movie. I liked it as a kid. It's like, yeah, because you were dumb. You were stupid. Literally, like the culmination of a waste of existence, and you could not comprehend the thing you were watching.
Kids
so,
aren't a waste of existence. You can't say that.
Have you met today's modern people? Every child that was born when I was a child was a waste of time. We shouldn't have done it. We could have saved a lot of people by not doing that. But the point being is that as a kid, you don't think about the politics going on in the world around you, but you can still enjoy the media that is made about those politics. You can watch Star Wars as a kid and have a fun time without needing to be aware of the politics involved. But guess what? When you are an adult, you get to unlock this really fun thing called meta commentary. And you get to sit there and go, wow, look, I can see that this movie is talking about more than just a bunch of weird religious guys with beam swords hitting each other. There's like story that has real world relevancy and has, like is telling me what is and isn't morally correct in this world that has parallels to real world. Like you can unlock more things to understand and deeper understandings of media that you enjoy when you have more worldly awareness as an adult, which is a great thing that almost everybody hates being allowed access to. No one wants to have that extra knowledge, it seems like. They want to go back to being children and sucking their thumbs and going like, I don't know what any of this means, but I'm having a good time. That's fine. You could do that. But you also can't get to turn around and go like, I miss when Star Wars wasn't political. And you're like, huh? What do you mean? When did that happen? Was that like one of those cartoons for kids that they made in Cartoon Network or whatever? Maybe the Clone Wars. I didn't watch it, but I don't know when Star Wars wasn't political.
That has to be a filter because there's people obviously that have that opinion, but the primary function of grifters, gaining popularity, complaining about Star Wars being too political these days, that is a filter though. That is them. I just want the people watching my videos that don't understand how the original Star Wars was political because they haven't thought about it or because they're dumb or because they're not educated. That's a filtering mechanism. Because if they say, I miss when the politics was about saying something about war instead of saying something about identity, it just starting into the nuance, which I'm not saying the new Star Wars are saying something about identity because I haven't watched them, and also
they are.
That's the case. I think they are.
A lot of it's about identity.
All of them are.
Yeah,
but
all
not
of it
in
talks
the way
about like Jedi and whether that's good or bad to be
exactly.
Jedi.
But not in the way.
All about identity,
not in the way that it's a Mary Sue or whatever, or they put.
Well, sure, Luke Skywalker isn't questioning his sexuality. Like it's not identity politics, but it is like identity.
No, it is identity politics though, in the sense that these characters.
Not in the sense. Sorry, I meant like
not in the sense, not in modern day sense or the colloquial way, but in the sense that the politics of the characters in Star Wars, and it's not just about Star Wars. This is about a lot of fiction, including modern day fiction. The politics of the characters in the stories is directly dependent on who the characters are, their identity, and so it's a Jedi, and the Jedi thinks this because he's a Jedi, and it's a whatever the other factions are. You know what I mean. But that's true though. Creating nuanced characters, pushing characters that are more
extreme with all the
it's
Star Wars conversations.
Funny that, he's been talking about Star
best.
Wars so much today, despite not seeing Star Wars. I'm like, it's okay, you don't have to.
But I like the message though.
Because do you know the message? You've never seen the movie.
No. The message of our conversation is what I'm saying. So I don't have to talk about Star Wars, but what I'm trying to say is that you could talk about Lord of the Rings, for example. Lord of the Rings has the same exact issue of every character is actually a vessel for an identity, which in the case of Lord of the Rings, at least the books in particular, works if you see it as mythology, as written as a mythology and not just as a story, even though it is a story as well, but you see it as well as mythology. So when you think of Frodo, you're thinking more than a person, or you're not thinking about him as a person, but you're thinking of him as a hobbit that is interacting
more than a person.
No, as a vessel to what a hobbit could be. And obviously he's a little bit of a subversion, but him as a character, and I say Frodo, but everybody else, including the dwarves or the dwarf in particular, Gimli, or Legolas or Aragorn, they're all vessels for something that exists in the setting apart from them. So the Aragorn is a vessel for the humans and the nobility of humans. Legolas is a vessel for the sort of the Ubermensch kind of nature of the elves, which is its own bag of yikes. But you can see those things, and when you think of what would Legolas, my pronunciation today, what would Legolas do if he saw a turtle in the middle of in the middle of a river? What would he do? And you don't think of him when you put yourself in his shoes and knowing the story, you don't think of him as a character of Legolas. You think of him as the nature of the elves in the setting of Lord of the Rings, and then you would know immediately what he would do. And the same goes for Gimli, or the same goes for Frodo, or
I think a turtle's like the height of a dwarf, so he'd probably kick it.
You would confuse it for a dwarf and be like, yeah, dirty scum.
I like to think that elves think anything that's not as tall as elves are dwarves, and they just kick them, just instinctively.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact: in the books, the elves are actually short. They're sort of more close to the Nordic origins of the elves.
I don't like that. I don't think elves can ever be short. I think that is actually
that's only in the movies. They made them even more Ubermensch in the movies than they were already.
No, they don't have to be Ubermensch. They just have to be tall. I want them to be like really tall.
But they're already Ubermensch before. Not in the Hobbit.
Like string beans. String bean elves are the best elves. I don't want no weird like
string bean.
String? What?
String bean elves. Yeah, elves need to be like tall and lanky. They like no muscle mass, they're not buff or anything. They are very just like
I see what you mean, string beans.
yeah, they're just like they're just these long, tall, thin little creatures that live in the woods, and they're very dexterity, like they have high dexterity and intelligence, but they're not like good for anything else. They're just like very good at trees and scavenging and
that's more or less what they are. You have a relatively good understanding apart from the string bean.
Yeah, but like dwarves should be like bulky. Dwarves should be they're workers, they're laborers. They should be bigger and like massier. Elves don't do anything. Elves don't fucking do anything.
They do though. They build cities in the trees. They're shown.
Once they did that. They didn't have to do it again because they live for eternity. They get to just show up, build a thing, and live in it forever. Like
in the setting of Lord of the Rings, you see in the page itself, you see that the elves build things. They're like weavers, and they like build baskets, and they sing. And
but they're not building cities.
They still work, right?
They built a city once. Dwarves have to like constantly go find new homes to live in. Hobbits have to like build tons of like buildings underground because they don't have like any apparent architecture.
The hobbits are the ones that don't work. They're the lazy ones. They're always the book goes through great lengths to say that hobbits
like 17 times the normal weight of any other life form. So that's like true. Clearly they must be burning through these calories like crazy. So like there must be doing something.
They do farm. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Oh, they smoke a lot of weed. The Hobbit and the first
but most
taught us that.
Most of the weed they smoke doesn't actually come from there.
It's probably not good weed. Bottom. Yeah, I mean it's whatever.
The good stuff comes from them, but they have a lot of other stuff from outside. Yeah,
the good stuff comes from them. They're not harvesting.
Yeah, long bottom leaf.
They're lazy little fuckers.
Long bottom leaf is the good stuff, I think, because that's the one that Pippin sees when he goes to what's the name of the tower? The White Tower. I forget. But he like after the Ents attack. Which in the books is not actually the
Ents. Just sees weed on like the
yeah, because they have these big pantries.
He's like, oh man, got some good stuff
he's like,
over here.
Oh look, long bottom leaf. Yeah, and Mary's like, wait, what? Let's go. And then they spend like 3 days just eating and smoking. It's from
I don't remember this at all.
So it's from it's in the book. It's in the book. You see a little bit.
I read the book. I don't remember this at all in the book. They just found dank weed and just had a good time with it.
No, they wasn't dank because the weed was specifically in the seriously, the book explains everything. It's in the top shelves, and they just spend a bunch of time smoking there, waiting for Aragorn to show up.
Yeah, and they're just okay. That's great.
Just eating it. Yeah, honestly, you see a scene that they show that in a single shot in the movies.
I was mad at first that they didn't show up to throw the ring in the volcano, but now I get it. That's fine. I'm totally on board with them sitting. Like they didn't show up because they were busy smoking.
Yeah. And it's not and because they're not characters in the book, it doesn't matter whatsoever because the plot isn't really about them in the sense that their choices they don't really matter. It's what is going to happen next is Aragorn is going to show up and it's going to do the thing of the plot, and then they are going to continue. The hobbits are going to continue with their own plot, of course, because obviously they're characters in the sense of they're vessels for the plot. But you don't when they stop and smoke for a week or 3 days or however long and just eat and drink.
A week?
Yeah, it takes forever.
What do you mean
I swear, I
what?
remember because when I read it for the first time, I was young, but I wasn't really. I
come back
with
around
certain.
now. I don't think that's okay. You shouldn't be smoking for a solid week. You need to do something.
I remember when I read it, I was like, wait a minute, they're just wasting time. Why are they wasting time? Why are they not doing anything? And the reason is because it doesn't matter. That's not, that's not what
no, it does matter. There's a very important thing going on. Like they're literally trying to stop the end of the world.
Hobbits are. Yeah, in the middle of stopping the end of the world, they stopped to smoke.
Excuse you. Samwise Gamgee did not stop and smoke weed for a week. He had plans and goals.
He builds. He has this whole thing with the OnlyFans or whatever they're called when they show up.
Sure, but
he spends a bunch of time trying to
for a week.
No. But he's like, oh, I'm gonna make a bonfire, even though we can be spotted because I want to cook these potatoes. And
potatoes.
Yeah, that scene is so much more tense in the books because. In the show, they show the Oliphants show up, but you're not really given a reason to think that they're in big danger while they're doing everything, even though they're showing that. But it's movies, you can't see their internal thoughts. But in the books, that scene is set up with them being like, oh, we shouldn't risk things, we should just eat whatever. And Sam is like, oh, I've been eating this elf stuff for weeks now, and I hate it. Well, I don't hate it, but it's just this thing. I wish I had potatoes. And so I don't remember what they eat, but like he has this saffron little box or whatever it's called, like these spices, and he's brought that from the Shire, and it's just like, and it's a bit of a throwaway scene because it doesn't come up again, but it sets up.
God, I love
it sets
that.
up a sort of
I love the idea that they just. They have like old shit like from.
He carries it to the end. It carries it to the end.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just like the idea of someone like, oh man, look at all this cocaine I have in a story before they know that cocaine's bad. And you're like, I don't think you should be taking a journey with cocaine. You're like, no, this great stuff's great. It helps me eat and it levels my digestion. You're like, okay.
Look, it's from the elves. It's not drugs.
Any consequences
later.
The elves.
I mean, that makes even more sense that it's from the elves. What else are they doing? You've got eternity to live. You're not going to do it sober. Like, what, are you kidding me? Good for them,
but it's
wait, is that the production line? Is it the elves who gives it to Gandalf and Gandalf gives it to the hobbits? Is that the line of drug production here? What else are the elves doing? They're reading.
No. The cocaine. What is the cocaine that you're thinking of?
No, I'm thinking of the weed. Like the weed must be.
Oh no, the weed was stolen. That's actually a big. I think they mention it.
No.
Being like, I wonder how the weed got here.
I think the weed is originally grown, harvested, and dried by the elves. Gandalf shows up and gets it because he's just hanging out. The hobbits do it.
The hobbits.
When? What time? They're eating all the time. They're literally eating
Long Bottom.
day.
The elves, the hobbits of Long Bottom have big weed farms. And I don't remember where it is. I always associate it with the south of the Shire, but I don't know that it is. And and so that's the hint when I think it's Merry that sees that, because Pippi is the smart one. They're both
Pippi.
Pippi's they're both smart, but Merry is the one that sees it and is like, oh, Long Bottom leaf, that's amazing. And then Pippin is like, I wonder where they got it. Why is it here? And it's like, oh, shut up, just smoke it. And they start smoking it. but then at the end of and this is like halfway through, or a quarter of the way through of the second book. And then at the end of the third book, you actually get to the Shire again, and it's called whatever, the devastation of the Shire, or whatever, big famous moment where Saruman is actually,
I think,
the scouring of the Shire. Yeah, exactly. And Saruman is up there, and that's that's the payoff of that one thing.
I love that. I love the idea that they just open a drawer and go, "Damn, there's some good weed here. Where did this come from? I don't give a shit. Smoke it, man." And you're like, "Okay." That's a very Cheech and Chong moment right there. I'm glad that they. I may be
oversimplifying it, but that's definitely what I remember happening.
I'm just happy to know that they existed prior to existing. It's good to know that like Cheech and Chong isn't a unique person. It's just a type of person that is always around forever in time. That's just reassuring, comforting to know.
Where are we?
Yeah, this question got a lot of
scared.
mileage. Go. What's the third question here? Or
I just couldn't
Keith,
follow
what's
for
your
like
prequel?
100 years. I just
this was because of identity
it
politics.
was
I trying to
occasionally
build an example.
reassuring when I'd hear you guys also clearly not understand each other. So I'm like, oh, it's not just me. Increasingly,
this
I'm
was
just
me
like, where did we go?
This was me building off of
Sorry.
what identity politics means, and I think it's a sort of a way to see the world. If you see the people as an extension of their identity, in the sense of this is a man, this is a woman, this is a black person, this is a Japanese person, this is all this, and if you see the world as that primarily, then you're going to write stories primarily as that, because you can so easily create characters based on their identity, and then the stories revolve around the character's identity. But if you see people as nuanced and well, nuance may not be the word, because even identity can be nuanced, especially if you're subverting expectations. It's still about
I
identity.
think
but
nuance still works, though. I think it's still
yeah, but what I'm
reasonable.
trying to get at, if you see people as just a conjunction, sort of a mix up of all their motivations and their fears and their sort of like flaws. I think flaws is such a great thing to build to think of when you're thinking of a character, because it also speaks to your motivations as an author. But if you're writing a story like that, it's so easy to come up with interesting drama, because you're not actually, you can just draw on your own experience as a person, and not on what you think you know about the world.
I wish
you
I
don't
could,
have to.
but I'm just too perfect. There's nothing I can draw on.
This is not true.
It's
You
difficult.
wrote your prompt was about.
What? This is not true. I'm not perfect. What is this? This is some fucking shit right now.
No, you're. That's fair. No, but I was gonna bring up your mage that I forget the plot. Oh, I forget your
What?
prompt.
My
Andrew, I'm
mage.
sorry.
What? What?
Yeah,
did my
remember
mage do?
it wasn't a mage. What was
Are
it?
you canceling my
2000?
mage?
Remember your 2,000 word thing that you
Oh
wrote?
God, I don't remember what that story was. You're asking the wrong.
It was
person.
somebody who was. I think it was a mage or something.
He
that
was a
just
plagiarist.
Plagiarist.
Oh yeah,
That's what it was.
That's
yeah.
what it was. Yeah.
It was so wild. Such a
Very
So,
different.
Keith, what is
It's completely different from a mage.
I wish it was a mage. I
The
think
answer I thought of
yeah.
like an hour ago was Mass Effect. Because I couldn't think of a specific
when?
story. So like I was trying to think of like a character driven narrative that I liked that had a side character that'd be interesting to do a prequel about. But I'm just drawing a blank. Like I'm bad at like conjuring lists of things and going through them in my head, like just on a whim. Like what's the best of thing? And I'm like, that requires me to make a comprehensive list of things that are within the category you're thinking of, and then go through them all. And I can analyze things and remember things and like unpack my memories and like opinions about things, but I can't just like conjure lists of things very well. So I'm always bad at best of lists and things. So I couldn't really come up with the kind of story I want to potentially bring up. So instead I thought of the other only time it's ever decent to make a prequel, which is when you just have like a really large setting. And so you have like obviously Star Wars, which even though the prequel movies were iffy, there's a lot of good prequels throughout Star Wars, like Andor or Knights of the Old Republic, that are like Andor was extremely funny because Rogue One's a prequel to the first Star Wars movie, and then Andor was a prequel to Rogue One directly, so it's very stupid. But like KOTOR is like Star Wars, but 1,000 years ago and stuff like that, and like House of the Dragon right now that people seem to be enjoying, but I am not watching until the season finishes because I'm not going to pay monthly for a new service. I'll just hop on when it's over. But House of the Dragon is a distant prequel to Game of Thrones, in that it takes place in the same setting. But aside from hearing certain family names come around, which is just a testament to how long they persisted, it doesn't feature any of the same characters.
That's a lot more normal in context to a medieval setting, which works out to their benefit too, which is nice.
And so for me, like for the longest time, I've always wanted to have a prequel to Mass Effect that was about the First Contact War between humans and
I was gonna ask you like, what
that's
time
a really
period?
good one. Yeah.
And in particular, I would love to see it from the Turian perspective.
Yeah,
they would
never
never make a game where you play as the Turians, but I would love to play a game where you play as the Turians and the humans just fucking show up.
Why do you think they wouldn't though? The Turians are so good.
No, people First of all, like one, it can't be made by modern BioWare. It has to be made by BioWare from 20 years ago somehow.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore.
But I mean, like EA won't make a game about the Turians.
But I think people would be receptive to a game.
Oh yeah,
there
of
are
course they
people
would.
like me
People
that are little
receptive
freaks that would
to
want to play a
body
game about
pillows
the
of fucking
aliens.
Turians.
And
What do
like,
you mean,
and
freaks?
like, there's
So
people that work at
cool-looking.
BioWare that would want to do it. I'm just saying that you never ever get to make a RPG that's not about a human.
Okay, hear
You
me
either
out.
have
I've got
you either have a
pitch
character
idea.
creator or you have a human, and it's almost usually a human guy. Like you don't get to make a
Yes.
full RPG about a weird bug person.
It's
So
not
hear me
weird.
out.
It doesn't get. It's not
How
going to
to-
get greenlit. I agree, it's
how to fix
good.
this-
You don't need to debate
how to
the
fix this
idea
problem.
with me. I'm saying they don't make it.
How to fix this problem? You want to go with the what was that game? The Spec Ops: The Line style. What you want to do is you want to start the game.
Great starting
As a
point.
human-
The reference point is a game
No,
that was not financially great and also doesn't exist anymore. Delisted from all
No,
platforms.
But you want to start out the game, this Mass Effect prequel, as humans fighting humans. But slowly as it goes by, you start realizing that you're not a human. You like the way that the narrator describes things doesn't make sense to what a human would be. Like he describes certain anatomy features.
But you're
that
just
don't make
playing
sense.
Soma then,
And you
like
no,
Soma
and
did.
so you slowly start to realize that you're a Turian, that's who you are. You're playing as the opposite
Yeah.
side. You think you're a person
I
the
like
whole
this.
time. Then it just
I like
halfway through it pulls the veneer off and it's like, surprise, you've been an alien the whole time, motherfucker. And you're like, oh no, like I'm the
I like
bad
this.
guy.
I like
is
this guy
not-
a lot.
This is not actionable. This just you can't do this.
It's not actionable, no. But Soma
Why?
did do
Why
that.
can't you do that?
No spoilers.
You could you could
for
only
Lord.
kind of do it in a hyper linear small scale narrative that's just basically just a shooter or something. But like
Yeah, it would be like a
Mass
third-person
Effect-
shooter.
Mass
It's not an
Effect is-
RPG. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm saying like Mass Effect is so built around its cultures and its setting, and like you can't just have
Well,
you can't play
Mass
coy
Effect
with
is.
that.
This isn't
with-
Mass Effect. This is a prequel.
The whole point was it for it to be Mass Effect. It's my prequel. Fuck you. Can't just steal it.
I thought it
from
just had to
me.
be. I thought
It's
you were talking
supposed
about
to
the
be-
story. Like a
It's supposed
story
to be
is just
the
has to
first
be a prequel
contact
to
war
Mass
in
Effect.
Mass Effect, but like Mass Effect's the franchise where you have quest hubs and you talk to people and so on. You can't like pull off I'm secretly a Turian the whole time when the war is
Why?
literally Turians versus humans. You can't just have all the
Yeah,
Turians
it
wearing
doesn't work.
helmets and no one notices their digitigrade legs.
Yeah, it doesn't work on an RPG because
No. I'm saying you start out with a human model. Your character's a human, and the narrator doesn't give any descriptive terms to make you think otherwise. When things happen, like your leg gets
in no
damaged,
way
it says like
compatible with
my
the narrative of the first contact war. Like it doesn't fit anywhere.
Yeah, because it's not
This,
like
this isn't
symmetric
applicable.
war.
This is
No.
just an unrelated sci-fi concept you're grafting on, which itself would distract so much from the premise that it would just be the new premise instead of the
Oh,
thing
okay.
that I
Yeah,
said I was
yeah,
making a
that's true.
prequel about.
Well,
I have a cheat.
It
if
also
you-
is just so where it's like, oh no, I'm not human.
I have a cheat
it's-
code for prequel,
yeah.
which is Outer Wilds. There we go.
What?
That doesn't
Yeah,
really.
because
You
if you're gonna
how
make
does
it a
that,
Outer Wilds game, it has to be a prequel. You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? Huh?
I don't think you should
But
make
that
another
doesn't-
Outer Wilds game.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. It's just saying. I'm just
I think
What if
Outer
that
Wilds
that
needs
would
to be
loop into-
done.
I think that would loop indefinitely, wouldn't it? Because then you would be needing a prequel
no spoilers, no
of a
spoilers, no
prequel,
spoilers, no
and
spoilers.
you need a prequel of a prequel. So like that's it already invalidates. If anything, I want a prequel of Outer Worlds. I want to know. I want to be
Actually-
on the ship. Like I want to be the guy that has
That'd
to
be
stuff
kinda
all the
cool.
people into the ship and is like, okay, we're gonna hope this turns out better in the end. Like I want to see what Earth looks like.
It's
What
always
what-
a little
what is
funny
the
when
state
someone
that-
reflexively is like, "Don't spoil the premise of Outer Wilds," because one,
It's an inside
One-
joke.
yeah, no, people sincerely do that though. I was literally just at
Yeah.
Anthrocon, and Marty hasn't played Outer Wilds, and he's got a whole friend group that's trying to get him to play Outer Wilds, and they're really sensitive about the idea of spoiling anything about Outer Wilds. But when they say anything, they mean like including the premise, like.
Yeah.
Which one? It's the hook that would get you to play in the first place, and like, and it's like it could be cool to not know somehow, but like
I
one, it's
I don't
literally
think
like
it is
it's
the
just
hook.
one, it's just listed on the store page. It's like
Nobody reads
it's
that.
it's not even like in the
I-
description. It's like the tagline for the game is that it's that game, but also like
Yeah.
who is hearing about Outer Wilds and the ambient radiation for literally 5 years now, but hasn't found out what its basic starting premise is yet.
I am the kind of player.
If you're that person, you've like magically. If you're that kind of person, you can't be spoiled because you're like inherently.
You just forget it. You're gonna forget it.
You just don't absorb information about things that like in that way. So you're safe.
That's a good point. That's a good point. When I watched a few like 5 or 6 years ago. I watched Sixth Sense, and I somehow did not know the ending, and I called it in the scene on the restaurant. I was like, "Wait a minute, I know what's up," and then it was what was up, and then like a day later, I was like, "Wait a minute, how did I not know this?" I think everybody knows that this is the most well-known.
It's an extremely memed
the hallmark.
and constantly referenced thing. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I must have seen somebody
especially in the decade it came out, and it was inescapable. It came up so much.
Yeah.
But no, it's like the equivalent of like me hearing Secession spoilers, and I'm like, well, I don't watch Secession, so it's just there's no scaffolding here to attach the spoiler to. It's just gonna fall down and be lost immediately.
Oh, makes
into
sense.
The ocean.
It falls down. Yeah.
Like I don't watch this thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Did everyone get the prequels? I can't remember. It's been like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were the last one.
I got 2 in fact. But I love the Mass Effect. I think yours is the best.
Yeah, I would also take the Krogan War. I think Krogan War would be kind of fun to experience.
They would have to retcon so much stuff. Not like retcon, but
the overwhelming failure. Like imagine just being on the Krogan side, just being devastated. You cannot win this war.
Well, the Krogans were winning. Wasn't the problem?
No, well, yeah, but what's the thing?
Why is it a problem though? That's because
I'm saying the genocide part. When the genocide started happening, you can see the failure in the Krogan forces. Like that must have been a terrifying experience. Where you're like, we're winning, we're definitely winning this war, and then your people are just getting wiped, and you're like, no, wait, oh no, like that must have been a hurdle.
The games talk about it in such like they're so racially tinged ways as well. The Krogans, because for one, they're treated the way they are because of their race, but
most
the
people
parallels. No, that's not true. Think of
that is. What do you mean? You start out and they're like, "Oh, lowly little monkey man, what are you doing here?" And I'm like,
"No, yeah, that's what I'm saying." Though
fucking colony.
Most species in Mass Effect are not racialized in the way that the Krogans are racialized. You don't see anybody complain about the what are they called? The Asari's psychic.
Yeah, they
thing.
do. I thought they complained about the fucking...
in the Mass Effect setting, the Asari are the white people.
Exactly, but they're not the only ones. Most of the races are the white people. They're just slightly different. The Krogans in particular are they're winning a war for one, and it obviously to the people on the other side of the war, it's a bad time. But
wait, were they winning a war? Or were they winning an invasion? Weren't they being like attacked?
Yeah, it's a war. Yeah, whatever. Like, what's the difference? The humans also won a war. It's an invasion.
Well, it kind of sets who's at fault here. Like,
but no, but certainly the children,
for no reason, or?
The children who are killed and the civilians who are killed are not the fault for one. And that's the game never says that. Even the people who are the most against the genophage or whatever it's called, the genocide tool, even the people in the game that are most against it never treat it as an actual genocide that has very direct parallels to real world genocides the same way. And it's so blatantly obvious that it's a bad thing to do, the genophage. But that's not even the problem. The biggest problem is that it's never analyzed how the Krogans are treated by the story, how they are treated differently in comparison to the way other races are. And the reason why they're treated differently is because they're racialized, and where other races are not. That's the thing. Because that it would be an interesting thing to talk about the Krogan War, but you would have to analyze these things. Otherwise, it'd be so yikesy. Because anytime they touch it's super yikesy. You know what I mean, though, right? Because man, for me, the biggest the biggest sort of the thing that was like, oh, that is the worst, was when is how their strength and how their because they're very strong, and how their aggressiveness is used against them as a they're bad, they're worse, they're dangerous, they're all this. Because these motherfuckers have space lasers and nuclear weapons, not to mention the genophage, And they're not. They don't have. That's not dangerous. But the Krogans are muscly. Oh no! Oh, must kill all their children. That's who's in the right? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like obviously on the face of the. If you just read the text, that's already pretty problematic. But for me, the biggest problem is that it's not analyzed. It's why are you writing this and not thinking that you're telling a story from such a biased perspective that is the direct parallel to real world oppression of racialized people, in particular black people, who are also demonized for being stronger and aggressive or whatever. And there's parallel. These are not the only parallels. I think
EA might have like looked it over and said, "This don't give me very good consumer happiness vibes. I don't want to talk about this."
Mass Effect.
You don't think they ever thought about once about the parallels they were drawing?
No. Because
okay.
Because otherwise they wouldn't otherwise they wouldn't make the very clear call in the first game that they were drawing a parallel between what are they called? What is the species that made the genophage? I forget their name.
The Solarians.
The Solarians, yes. They're drawing a parallel between them and the Nazis in the first game when they say the final solution for the Krogans. They literally say the words.
And it's also called the genophage.
Yeah. But it's just never analyzed.
The genocide disease.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but it may be geno also means just people.
But I don't know what phage means. That's in sci-fi terms, because you always have to think a little dumber.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about the etymology, what the words technically mean, and blah blah blah. It's what does this make you think when you hear it?
Yeah.
That's what it means. It's the genocide disease. That's the point.
Yeah.
No, it's the Krogans are upsetting. The whole situation. It's a lot.
And in the third game, actually, it's where they're best treated because they have their planet. Is it the second game or the third game that you go to their planet and there's the sun burns you? I forget which game it is.
That's definitely the kind of gimmicky thing that makes it into the third game, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think the third game's where you quote unquote solve that storyline.
Yes.
I think you can fix their genetic code.
You don't really address the Krogans in the second game. I think you visit their planet and you like land in one like craterous ruin of a building and like Rex is there, say Shepard, and then you go off on a little mission to find the one Krogan scientist that comes up in the story because you're dealing with Grunt.
But even in those in that situation where they're the most humanized, there's never any amount of self-reflection. For one, to see the complete devastation that these people have been forced into directly because of this genophage. But and also because even though it is the most human you get to see them, or most humanized, they're still being complete. There's constant fear mongering by your companions in particular about the fact that they're so strong and if we don't kill 99.9% of their children, or not kill because they are never born, but still, what could they do because they have muscles? But that's the thing. But even when they're at their most humanized moment, there's no self-reflection, including then eventually the solution, which is somebody else, and particularly a Solarian, who is the one that saves them. And if you kill the original Solarian in the second game, it's some other Solarian with slightly different motivations. It's still very dumb. But
I do want to kill everyone in Mass Effect at some point, just to see.
What? He just died. He just died on last mission for me, because there's always somebody that dies.
That's him right
there. I'm just saying, like, I want to not recruit / kill the maximum number of characters in Mass Effect just to see what the story does in all of its forms, because the
second game makes it difficult.
Because obviously I just don't do that. Obviously everyone just lives, and so I never see any of the weird replacement characters. The only exception is sometimes the council's dead, and so I saw which is I imagine the least impactful variation of that, because the council's replaced by literally the same people basically.
Yeah.
But like the character that's not Mordin has to not be Mordin. They can't just give him all of Mordin's lines and dialogue and voice acting and call him Jude Like he's got to be a
name,
new character. So it's like it would be interesting to unpack what happens if everyone's dead, because I've never done that.
So I only lost Morden because of the last mission of Mass Effect 2. He dies because of some random dice throw or whatever. And
Not
it was
purely
my least favorite.
random.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's actually I believe it's not random at all. It's like a really complicated flowchart of who dies if you make certain choice mistakes. I haven't done everyone's loyalty mission.
I replayed it like 3 or 4 times, and it's difficult because you cannot save during the final mission. So it's like at least 50 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's pretty long.
But I could not save.
They do like these fake outs where they shoot Garrus. They look like they shot Garrus, and you're like, huh? And then he's fine. It was a fake out. Like there's such dicks in that whole sequence.
But I was just drawing the parallel between the Krogans being saved by the Salarians as a parallel to the White Savior trope, which is also not analyzed. But in particular, regarding the substitute of I forget his name. We were just talking about it. The substitute of the original Salarian. He's just going on about how evolution, but who controls evolution? It must be God, and that's why I don't want to make genocide. That's the whole thing, and it's so dumb and bad because they don't understand what evolution is. Whoever wrote that, and which is fine if you're anti-evolution. It's normal that you don't understand evolution because you're anti-evolution.
Well, it's also like when characters say something, they don't have to be right.
No, but that guy's a scientist, and it's clear that there's no pushback whatsoever, and it's clear that they tried to make him like I'm a scientist, but I also think there may be something more. And when you try to reconcile those two things, it's possible to reconcile those two things, as evidenced by the many thousands of scientists all across the world who are religious. But the way you do it cannot be in a fundamental evangelical way from the United States, because they do not understand what evolution is. So it's just they say nonsense stuff that doesn't make any sense in the game. But it's good because it's just a substitute character. But still,
I'm so far removed from all this because I haven't played any Mass Effects since I played the whole trilogy right before Andromeda came out.
Mm-hmm.
I replayed them all because I was like, I'll do them on the channel, and then that was almost a decade ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the worst thing that happened in 2016.
Good year.
I don't know what you mean by there's no self-reflection, though. I guess I can't tell exactly which specific facet you're talking about, because I'm like, the games are heavily about it, and like talking to Rex is just the saddest fucking thing in each game. He just talks about how the Krogans are just wandering hopeless, and like there's no effort to build and no effort to like rebuild, or because they're inherently been told that they don't have a future because of what's happened to them, so that's why so many of them are essentially pirates and so on.
I think so what I mean by there's not being any self-reflection, it may be that I'm oversimplifying it, obviously, because there is reflection, but what I'm seeing and missing is the game pointing at the fundamental problem of the civilians are not to blame, for one, as the solution to the question of is it a genocide. So I just want one single character somewhere in there to say, hey, the civilians are not to blame. It is genocide. And you can, like, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be somebody you can't even interact with. Something that shows me for that particular issue. So something that shows me somebody in the development team knew what the biggest problem was with the genophage, because what they show, I feel, is sort of a here are the unintended consequences, the necessary evil. The problem with necessary evil is that in a story. I think I even made a rant about this specifically because it is shown as a necessary evil. The problem with necessary evil in a story is that you're showing it to be necessary, and it isn't necessary. It's evil, just evil. That's the problem. And it's the problem of the Krogan War, that they show this genocide as a necessary evil. It isn't necessary evil. And I'm sure there's some people who agree with that, but I just want somebody in there. This wasn't needed. It would be fine. It's all right for people to win wars because that's what happened. People won wars. The Krogan war was won. They won wars, right? It's a fantasy setting where
they also used the Krogans to win the Rachni War.
Oh,
that's the origin of the whole mess.
Yeah, that's another. Yeah. But what I'm just saying is, I needed somebody to say. It's such a fundamental aspect that I think colors everything else. The fact that they don't see I think the development team doesn't see the Genophage as unnecessary. There was nobody in the team or the writing team anyway that saw it as a thing that wasn't needed in one form or another. And then everything that the game talks about it, even though it talks about very nice things or talks about specific things in nice ways that I agree with, they don't. Everything is still colored by the fact that they think it's necessary, which I disagree with.
I don't know if I can agree with that. That no one thought it was not necessary, because the entire narrative arc of Morden is him struggling to reconcile the fact that his primary thing he's done in his life is something that he regrets.
As I said, I haven't seen The Substitute. I didn't see Morden in the third game.
Yeah, because Morden sacrifices himself to undo the Genophage, which was his life's work. It's a little more convoluted than that because they only live for 40 years, so he didn't do the original Genophage. They wrote it that specifically they detected that they were recovering and evolving past it, like it was not going to have the long-term ramifications that it was originally designed to, so he improved the Genophage and essentially made it stable when it was otherwise going to be pushed past. And that's his life.
Yeah, they're going to evolve.
He's even more of a criminal,
or whatever.
He's even more of a criminal.
Yeah, he made the Genophage worse after it already was a monstrous thing that already happened.
When it wasn't needed anymore, it's certainly not needed. Yeah,
and it's both his life work and his biggest regret that he's refusing to admit the entire time in both games, but ultimately he does sacrifice himself to undo it.
But he can't undo it though, because the war for one, the Krogans already lost the war. The cultural damage
obviously
is
I
permanent.
mean he sacrificed himself just to get rid of the Genophage.
Yeah. I would think in the circumstance he did what is considered good. You should be doing anything you can to correct a wrong to an entire race of people.
But the game also presents it as a sort of an ambiguous choice in a way that it was wrong, but there's a lot. There's a lot of pushback.
I don't know if it's that ambiguous, because the only way to stop the Genophage is to mercilessly shoot Morden to death while he's trying to stop it. It's
I'm saying
the choice to stop it.
I made that choice.
It's the most hated choice maybe in all of Mass Effect, is shooting Morden to stop him from curing the Genophage.
I agree with that.
It is emotionally so obviously the wrong choice. In that, you can't really say that BioWare treated the options even-handedly or they were just as bad.
I'm not saying they did. I'm saying is after you do that choice, there's a bunch of characters that come up to you and say, "Oh yeah, well that may be the good thing to do, but we're gonna have to live with the consequences and stuff like that." Which in any other, well,
which is what people say in real life when you talk about opening borders.
They do, but in real life,
all of the racists are still racist all around you in real life all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Also wrong.
In real life, I can also say you're just racist. The consequences is you're racist. That's what the consequence is. That is the society you live in has been engineered to allow you to be racist to begin with, because the borders were there. Or in the case of the Genophage existed. And
most settings aren't ready to deconstruct and dismantle their entire setting in a single narrative arc. That doesn't usually happen.
I needed one person to be like, "No, there's no consequences. You're being controlled by the Asari, and they're way more powerful."
That sounds differently racist.
It does. But at least
that sounds like you're start talking about Asari space lasers.
But the Asaris aren't the space. No, especially because I didn't mention that the Asari had space lasers. But in my defense, the space Jews in Mass Effect are the banker race in Mass Effect 1 that gets erased.
The little gas mask wheezy guys?
Those guys are very much of space Jews allegory, and I'm
Are
very
they?
uncomfortable with it.
Who gets erased?
They don't show up in other games. There's like these
Yeah,
guys
they
in
do.
They
love
do?
the Volus.
Yeah.
I love them. They're cute.
The Volas, that's what they are.
They're
The
forever.
Volus so cute as shit.
Oh man, they're so. Oh man, it's pretty yikesy.
Oh my
yikesy.
God.
Their design
What are
is
those-
cool, but
What are those guys?
it's pretty yikesy.
I
think it is
don't-
the Vol. Let me look it up.
I don't know if I can agree that they're space Jews. I don't understand the connection between. They don't have any like the Quarians and the Geth fighting over who gets to live in this particular land in a case of in an endless war that has mutually assured destruction feels way more on the nose than the vague little greedy fat like suit
that's true.
guys
You're
that
right.
just go.
You're right. I'm just going off of my. I think you're right. I'm going on my reaction from playing the first game.
They're
a
just
couple
funny
of
little
years ago.
guys. I don't think they have.
think you're right.
I don't
I think
think
you're
they're
right.
loaded imagery. They're not goblins.
I think you're
But
right.
let's.
But
be
when I
honest
say that
here.
they're being controlled by the Asari, I mean the council is all Asari, and I obviously I'm not saying that
The
they're being
council's
controlled
not all
like it's a
Asari.
parallel.
The council has one Asari.
Okay,
The
council
it's
is
an
one
Asari,
Asari.
a Turian,
does,
and a
that's-
Solarian.
That's true.
It's the
different
three-
things.
It's the council
three main
races. That's why they're
empires.
called that.
Yeah.
Council races. That's what I'm thinking of exactly.
Yeah, it's the three white empires.
But that's what I'm
But-
referring to. You'd never hear people say, "Oh," which actually would be realistically. It
That
would
is
be
maybe
realistic
something to unpack. You said what you just said though, like Andrew. The council races as being Mass Effect's version of whiteness, essentially, and everyone else being treated
yeah,
as
that's what
other. compared to that.
I treat them as like
That's
the
what I'm
U.S.,
saying.
Britain,
That's
and
what I'm
France, and I'm like, yeah, this is just what they are. Like,
That is very much how I see
as
the
opposed to
parallels
being like
drawn
an
in the game.
L core,
dude, L cores.
or
Okay,
much worse
L
off
cores.
the what are they Batarian.
What is it?
I'm gonna.
You
I'm gonna
wipe
come
out the
and say it.
Batarians in a DLC. Like
Wow. Oh,
You're
I
gonna-
remember the Batarians, the ones that say their emotions.
Oh
because
right,
they
we
can't
talked about this
express
ages
them.
ago, and like this is like a thing you missed, right? Because you never played the DLCs. You just
I
started
didn't,
Mass
no,
Effect
'cause
3, but
they're not
and you
available on
said
Steam.
no spoilers at the time, but now you've beaten Mass Effect
Yeah.
3, I think.
Not yet. I haven't beaten it yet. I need to go back to it.
What?
Yeah, well, in the time skip between Mass Effect 2 and 3, you essentially wipe out the Batarians.
On purpose?
Yeah.
Kind of. And it's a which is funny because the Batarians were introduced in a DLC between Mass Effect 1 and 2. So if you don't play any of the
And there they
DLCs,
die.
if you don't play any of the DLCs, the Batarians just are in Mass Effect 2 and only Mass Effect 2, and there's no introduction or outro. And
Oh, I
that's it.
remember these guys. The multi-eye.
Yeah.
goobers.
They show up
Yeah.
as like pirates on the moon or something, or on an asteroid in Mass Effect 1 DLC, and it's like, oh, a new alien race, and that's the introduction to the non-council races, these like distant ones. It's the Batarians, the bug people.
Wow. Wow.
Because when you go to Omega, it has all of these new races that you don't normally see otherwise
In Mass
because they're not,
Effect
they're not
3,
allowed
yeah,
on the
yeah.
Citadel. No, in 2.
Oh, Omega is in 2. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Omega was a huge location in 2. It had like disc changing involved sometimes to go to and from there because that game was so big. It was obnoxious. Yeah, you in Mass Effect 2's DLC. It's the worst DLC. It's so fucking bad. Arrival is the worst piece of Mass Effect until Andromeda, and people argued with me at the time when I covered it, but it's just such a garbage storyline. But you go to a place and like a bunch of people are being mind controlled, and you realize, oh, they're all indoctrinated because it's they're being affected by a Reaper. And so you find out that like there's a specific gate they're going to be using to arrive is the one that's by the Batarian homeworld. And so in order to stop it, you end up blowing up the mass relay, which as we know in general through a lot of Mass Effect, like that's a catastrophic thing to do. It destroys the entire
Yeah.
system. So it destroys the Batarian homeworld and so on. So you sacrifice the entire Batarian homeworld, and you can't not do it. And that essentially was just to buy time before Mass Effect 3. It's one of the roughest things about this, and like inherently, like when you talk about like this and that racism and so on, I'm like, it's like Mass Effect 3 is to a large extent about xenophobia and racism and so on. Like it's a core element of the thing. A very interesting thing to me about the setting is that the most infamous speech that Ashley gives in the first game, that is the speech that is why everyone calls her racist and everything, is her accurately saying what the plot of the series is. And in particular, she's just saying to you what is going to happen in the plot of Mass Effect 3. Which is that when the Reapers attack, everyone is going to just turtle up on their planets and only think about themselves and not help each other, and all community is going to be gone immediately. Is like her speech about how like you love your dog, but you'll sacrifice your dog to get away from the bear thing.
But don't you
no,
think
I wouldn't. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I could not understand that speech. Where she's like, yeah,
exactly. That's
like,
true.
I will literally burn the forest to get the bear away from me. Like I will literally destroy all of Earth to make that dog survive.
Don't you think?
And I think like that is.
Don't you think that's also sort of a reflection of the whole thing about the necessary evil of the evil actions? Like it's a bit of an echo of people who say, "Oh, racist people are just saying what we all think. They just have the guts to say it," and obviously showing their entire ass as racist when they say that.
Are you saying I don't have guts? I don't say racist.
No,
shit, because I have guts.
Because that's a common narrative among racist people, or vocal racist people, I should say.
That's not what I'm saying, though. Because I'm not saying that they're right. And I'm not like just I'm not saying that Ashley is right in what she says.
No,
the game.
I'm saying that Ashley is right about the council.
Exactly. No, the game thinks she's right. I think that's what happens.
She is right.
It depends on what you mean by right.
She is accurately telling.
I don't think that Ashley thinks what she's saying. I don't think that the game thinks that what Ashley's saying is good. I think that the game thinks that Ashley is correct, that the council will do that.
Yes, that's what I mean. Correct.
Yeah,
because they already probably knew the plot that they were going to write that story.
Of course, yeah. That's what I mean. To be specific, I think the game thinks she's correct. Not good. She's not good. I think the game unequivocally paints her as she has a story arc that she gets better a little. She also gets yassified, which is interesting, but that's a different thing.
Good for her. What she
has the best
learn how to yassify herself halfway through a space adventure?
She's so made up in the third game.
Her makeup revamp is so strange to look at.
It's interesting. But
I guess she's a mercenary now, so she's allowed to do that. Where she used to be in the military is maybe where it's explainable.
Her. She looks fabulous, but and I'm not even trying to unpack the implications of that because I don't know if they are there because I haven't thought about it. But that's it's a reflection of that same attitude. I think is that the truth is somewhere in the middle, kind of attitude towards the Paragon and the Renegade options, is that they're two sides of the same coin, and the same coin is in the middle of an outwardly racist imperialist and a cop, which is the Paragon and or rather Renegade and Paragon respectively. So I think that's where the game is coming from. And obviously, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to cancel anybody here. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying that this stuff happens. Ashley. And also this stuff happens because they're making an RPG. You have to be able to play Paragon and Renegade and feel nice about it in similar ways. In the way Mass Effect does it, that's one of the reasons why Baldur's Gate 3 is so amazing, because
it's why they keep making you play as variations of cops in so many of these games in various ways. A Grey Warden, a Jedi, and so on. Is because it's a bit akin to how like a 4X game has inherently like colonialist like ideology built into like its basic mechanics. Mm-hmm. Like there's questions of like, how do you make an RPG that isn't about this one person that just goes from land to land and like solves everyone's problems and is the most important person and has a lot of like ideological implications to even existing in that form and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a core struggle to some extent.
Yeah, it
struggle would imply anyone's trying to stop it.
I think there's RPGs out there that tell different stories. Well, particularly less choice focused RPGs have a little bit of an easier time with that, because the impulse to to make quests where you have to solve a problem that isn't yours to begin with is just too great. And it's just, that's the history of RPGs, right? But I was going to mention Baldur's Gate 3 because playing evil things or doing evil things in Baldur's Gate 3 isn't an exercise of I want to do the evil thing, or my character wants to do the evil things, and let's be evil for the sake of it. It's actually, the game tells you what evil things are available, or you can figure them out. And then you get to see scenes where it's truly heart-wrenching, and you can't help but sympathize with the people you're punishing or killing or murdering. And the game doesn't shy away from, at least in Act 1, because that's as far as I played in Evil, the game doesn't shy away from making the scenes gut-wrenching. It's not there to satisfy just a sadistic player. It's there to tell a sad story because you're being evil. And I think that is very refreshing. If you remember in Baldur's Gate 3, the Arabella, the little kid, the little tiefling kid that steals the idol in Act 1, and she's being not assaulted but berated at by Kolga and her snake. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
I'm on like the act. We've like started the Act 3 part of her storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm just sort of putting you in the viewers as well in as an example. So in that scene, if you choose the evil options, in particular, there's one evil option that revolves around Arabella not surviving and you telling her parents in a very evil way that she doesn't survive. And when I say evil, I mean you're not going around. It's not a bloodbath. You're not necessarily the person who kills Arabella or anything. So I'm just saying it's the evil because it is the evil options. And the scenes, that like the acting and everything is just so heart-wrenching, even on a rewatch. And it's just such a brutal first experience for the first big evil act that most people will do if they go for evil characters. That is just like, wow, I'm very much looking forward to seeing characters like, without spoiling anything, but characters like Isobel and her storyline, or characters like Will and his storyline, for example. To see, particularly Isobel, to be fair, but to see what happens on their evil. Or on an evil path across the journey that they go through, because it feels to me like it's going to be so antagonistic to how I experienced their characters the first time around, where it's a story of sort of growth and happiness and drama and all that, but it's still, I got to see them have this one story, and now I'm gonna just come to wreck their world, and it's gonna be the worst thing. I look forward to that because I know it's gonna be horrible. But the game takes it seriously, and there's not many RPGs that do it like that. You can't be a renegade in Mass Effect and see those. You get to be a badass, because the renegade is actually a badass. It's just she takes no shit from it.
Cop on the edge.
My shepherd is she, but still.
We did it.
We did it.
We did.
We had technically two questions if you count the one about the dog.
There you go.
Two questions.
We're making progress.
And yeah, we are. We're getting there. We'll get these questions eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually.
If you want to ask questions, look at the community tab in my YouTube channel, because no one will email.
Yeah, email. Yeah, that's true.
So I'm just I realized like I should just try making a community post the morning of, and then just see what questions come in. And it might be first come, first serve, because we might only do one.
Yeah, it depends.
We did two.
But still
What are
ask
you
the questions
talking about?
anyways.
Yeah, we did one. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.